Yep.
We're live. I'll give a few minutes, let people come on here. So, what's your guys' first poll this year?
Uh, Bridgeport, Nebraska here.
There he is. Come on, Jim. We got him.
Oh, buddy.
We did it.
Here,
Jim, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Look at this.
yeah. Okay.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Jim, turn your phone sideways so it's long ways, parallel. There you go. Give it a second. It'll adjust. Okay, I lied. Don't worry about it. That's in his settings. I don't want to do that to him.
Yeah, no, just turn it
Jim,
back.
go ahead and turn it back.
Okay, boy, prop that guy up and get comfortable.
All right, take it away, Lussetto.
All right, well, welcome to another chat with Live Lussetto. We got a very, very special guest tonight by the name of Jim Puckett. And Jim, I'm going to start off by asking how you got started and got involved in pulling many, many years ago.
Well, a long time ago, back in the late 70s, I was working for Sandhill Implement at Bassett, Nebraska, and they bought a modified tractor with Alice Chalmers tin work on it. Had a little 454 in it, naturally aspirated. And that got me hooked. And so I got started that way, went with the Swansons different times. And then I found a 180 Alice Chalmers tractor over in Iowa and bought it. And then I ended up selling it to Arnold Baker, and he sold it to a guy in Illinois. There was an article in the Puller magazine a couple, 3 years ago about it. But anyway, how I got started announcing is after I broke the tractor a couple times, the announcers got paid every time they went, and all I was doing was spending money. So I decided that if I just go and I was good at that, running my mouth, and they was going to pay me, and that made more sense to me than working on a tractor every night after work, and so that's how I got started announcing.
You got to tell Jason the name of the tractor, because that was one of my favorites.
The tractor's name was the Bassett Hound.
And that tractor went to Arnold Baker.
Yeah, that tractor ended up Arnold Baker. He got it. It was in pieces, and had brand new 2-ply 30.5 tires on it, never been cut, and that's how that whole deal all started. And then I started doing Nebraska shows, and then the guy that used to run the state fair called me and asked me if I'd come and do the Nebraska State Fair. I'm not remembering his name.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me recognized. And first thing you know, my phone rang, and I did a few shows every year. And then I got to I done a show for Andy Main over in Iowa or in Illinois. And then I got on the NTPA board, the executive board. I served 2 terms there and got a little recognition there. Let me tell you what, that was in the late 70s, early 80s. That was an education itself to be on that NTPA, because we shut the door after the horses got out many, many times. There's lots and lots of stories, but I don't like to tell them because it might involve somebody that nobody would want to know what happened. But
absolutely.
There was Andy Main was on the board, Lloyd Ludke. There was a guy from Georgia, had an old Minneapolis Moline he pulled. Danny Fillingame.
Danny Fillingame. Holy smokes.
And then
Yep.
Dave Haley was the president. Then there was a guy from Pennsylvania on the board. There were some others. Gary Sporres, later the second year, served my second term. Gary Sporres was on the board with me. Ralph Banner, and that was quite an experience. I wouldn't give a nickel to do it again, but I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. It was a great experience, and I met friends. We're friends to this day, these people. And then after that, well, I went to work for Steiger Tractor and traveled Kansas and Colorado and part of Oklahoma, and my job got to interfere with my tractor pulling. And so that's when I went off the board. I didn't serve my complete term. I just decided that my job was more important than the NTPA. It was a tough decision to make, but I knew in order to eat, I probably ought to stay with my job.
Jim, what were some of the notable pulls that guys would remember, like you did for NTPA?
Well, let me think. NTPA, I did the show at Hildreth, Nebraska for right up until they had the Grand National, and when they called me about the Grand National, I told them that I wouldn't do it. Yeah, because I said we've got a great crowd, and I said you spend all this money and this is going to break you. You don't do this. But they did it anyway, and that was a tough decision too, because I loved those people down there and I liked doing this show, but I didn't want to be a part of that them, and they did. It broke the Hildreth Lions Club. I don't know how they ever got out of it, but they did. Jason,
just for your own information, though, that Hildreth poll would be like the current day Wisner, Nebraska. I mean,
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it, Greg, for sure.
You can go back and watch. There's still videos where it was filmed for ESPN in like 88 and 89. Pretty cool stuff. And Jim, you were pretty instrumental in the Nebraska truck and or it was tractor pullers at that time.
The Nebraska tractor pullers, we had I don't know, it seemed like maybe I served a little term, one of the presidents or something like that. But it was Lyle Nelson and Von Jurgens, Jack Carey, Dennis Swanson. Then there was a guy, and I just saw him last night at a meeting. Doug Nelson had a little 3010 John Deere with 2 turbochargers on it, 4-cylinder, and he still has that tractor, by the way. It sits in the shed.
Yes, he does. Jason, they actually took 2 Rosa Master pumps and hooked them together and teed lines because it was a different time. That was a tough little tractor. If you, I'll tell you what, I should have prepared a little better, Jim. I've got a picture of Doug's tractor on my Facebook page. I'm going to have to go find that and get that to Jason. I do have one question off of what you mentioned. You talked about, when you were on the NTPA board about the closing the barn doors after the horses are out. Was that kind of a rules thing, or what were you meaning?
Yeah, that was the rules. We had to have an accident or something to in order to put a roll bar, for instance, a roll cage on, which I wasn't a part of that. But there was little things that happened that these guys back in the early 80s, these tractors were wild and crazy, and they just sat on the regular old seat. A lot of them didn't have a seat belt on.
Yeah, and they're actually somewhere in there, and I don't know why I'm thinking like 77 is when the steel flywheel rule come in, or somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's exactly right. When I bought this little 180, it didn't have a steel flywheel, and I had to put one on it. And I could put a new Crower Glide in it at the same time.
Jason, isn't that just foreign to think about that, I mean, crazy. And then I know 79, the wide front ends come in. That was a pretty big change too. Cause man, there's
it'd be like
double fronts all over the place. And Andy Bain running down the track with one wheel on his double front because he couldn't make weight with his old case.
Yeah, it'd be like sitting on a tractor today without a roll cage, Greg.
There's Arlen Jensen. There's a whole group of stories there.
Yeah, Arlen from Harlan.
Arlen from Harlan, yep.
Yeah, him and his mother traveled a lot of miles in the old Dodge pickup. There was another guy, Arnold Dreesen, that had a white, and he cut the sides out. He had a box on the back of his pickup, pulled a gooseneck trailer, but he cut the sides out, so when he made a turn, that the gooseneck would go and he could keep the top on because that's where the kids rode.
There's that we had seen some, that tractor ended up out west here by us, and they literally cut and trimmed the tires with chainsaws, and those things were just paper thin, and the whole transmission deck was made out of plywood. Damn nice looking. You get close though, and it's like, no way this was actually. But that was a tough customer back in the day.
Well, I remember being on the board, and I'm trying to think. There was a father and son out of Michigan, had tough running 806s, and we were going to add 200 pounds for safety. Now I can't remember if it was fenders or what it was, and they told us that they couldn't make the 9,000 pound class by adding with those 806s. They'd have to quit pulling if they added another 200 pounds. Cole's the guy's name.
Yeah, that had to be the wide front because I think they added. That's when they went to 52, 72, 92, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that might have been. I just don't remember all. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Jason, can we tell politically incorrect stories here?
Yes. We can do whatever we want.
Mark Ulmer told me a story about that white, and he said Ed Dreesen was the dad, correct? Arlo the son. They said Ed Dreesen was fast, and his famous bar trick or whatever was he would challenge people to a foot race, and I guess he was the fastest guy. And here's a guy in his 50s out there racing people at the bar, and I guess in the bar they had a sign put up there for the white tractor, okay, white tractor, Jason, and on it said "Go Whitey, go." I mean, so that's great Mark Ulmer stuff. Another one too, you look at the legacy of people that are still going. You talked about Lyle Nelson. It's darn cool to see that he's actually fourth generation later is
yes, it is
still pulling. He's got great grandkids sitting on there. He's smiling somewhere.
I can tell you a little Lyle Nelson story. I know a lot of them. This one I can tell. Lyle Nelson was over in Wayne, Nebraska, and we had a guy that he had a V8 tank engine, and there was a little propane tank supposedly under Lyle's feet. Well, it was nitro, and they could open the valve and inject the nitro in it. And Lyle started down the track, and he was really, really humming, and he reached down and opened that valve a little more, and it blew the hood and the head right off of that 806. Sounded like a bomb went off.
Oh man, that typical Lyle story was
those are the good old days. Those are the good old days. So.
Who was the guy with the tank engine? Was that Dick?
Yeah, Dick. What was his last name?
Payne.
Yeah, Dick Payne.
Announcer's dream right there, Jason.
Yeah, I would have gotten a lot of trouble there. Not gonna lie.
But yeah, he was one of our longtime Nebraska mod pullers.
Yeah.
And
He-
where
see,
was
had
he
a-
from?
he was from up by Grand Island,
Okay.
north and west, and that was an F-30 frame. He never bothered to narrow it up, and so with the 30s on the flatbed trailer, he stuck out about 6 inches on both sides, and he was headed to Louisville. He pulled in Louisville with that tractor, and it was in the middle of the night, and he pulled into the way station. The guy told him, he said, your boomers must have let go and your chain got loose. He said, you're sticking out about on one side there. And Dick supposedly, I wasn't there, looked at it and he said, oh man, am I glad you told me that. He said, I could have lost that tractor. And the guy says, just pull it out, start it, and get it a little closer if you can. It was cold, they said. And so he backed it up and rolled it ahead, and he was still sticking out just as far on the other side, and the guy let him go.
Yeah.
Greg, I remember your dad starting that M Farmall he had with a crank.
You know, he did that at the Indy Super Bowl even.
Yes, he did. I was there.
Do you know why he did it?
No, I never did know.
Because he parked it for the last of the season, right when the steel flywheel rule came out, and all he was able to get was like a small block Chevy flywheel or something, or Ford that was re-drilled, and the ring gear was not even anywhere close. His only option to pull that thing was put the crank on it, and that stupid tractor would start unbelievable. 2 pumps on the 4-barrel, way she went.
And that was. But he had a steel flywheel.
Hey, man, he was legal. That's all that mattered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, different days. Yep, and I tell you what, there's another guy up, Dwayne Pfister just mentioned in a comment, Vernon Wood.
Oh, yeah. I was in Hutchinson, Kansas, when Vernon Wood hit that concrete wall at the fairgrounds. And he was humming when that happened. Sparks just flew and he just hit the brake and took off and went right out the end. Never lifted. Yeah, he was.
Nobody they just looked the other way, like no big deal.
Yeah, it's just like, all them guys standing there like, boy,
no way.
Man, the Sparks. Yeah, just like that happens every day, no big deal.
Yeah.
Those guys, they strapped them. When them guys set down those tractors, they only knew one thing. That was full speed ahead.
Yes. Well, there were several guys between Jack Carey and Lyle Nelson. They're both that way. I've seen Jack Carey take some rides that would scare me with a roll cage.
Oh, yes. It's just unbelievable some of the rides those guys took. What was it? David Sinks, another kid with a tough running 180. Left us too soon. Good friend, but Dave, he bent both rims up in Minnesota. He went up there to there was a pole there in southern Minnesota. He went up and he got sideways and crossways and bent both rims because we had a pull in Bassett like the next night, and he showed up, but he couldn't pull because the rims was bent so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, that's, Jason, I told you the history is I won't say a pastime, it's a passion of mine. That's one tractor that I've been looking for. That tractor left out of Bridgeport here, got sold to a Don Krinsky in Minnesota.
Okay.
And then the last thing that we heard, and I can't find, I talked to Krinsky's son the other day in Oklahoma, and that tractor went to Pennsylvania, and it just dropped off. We can't. There was in '77 there was 3 tractors in Bridgeport here that all won their region and went to the Indy Super Bowl. My dad's M was one of them, and I was able to get that tractor bought back about 5 or 6 years ago. Stan Girdle's brand new. He had a 966, and they tore up a new 986 And LD Nation told me that 986 is still pulling in Tennessee. I haven't figured out which one it is yet, but someday.
Well, I think Jack Carey's 4010 or 4020 is in, I think it's in Kentucky too, isn't it?
It went to Kentucky. I don't know where it went from there.
What
And-
about Vernon Woods 4010? One of the first ones in the 5.
You said it went back to Illinois or Indiana?
Yeah, it went back. I think maybe it might have went to Kentucky. Jack Carey and Woody were really good friends, and I think through Jack that's how it got sold. And I think it had something to do with where Jack's tractor went.
I'll be darned. Now, Jason, he needs to answer this question here. We got a
read
guy.
it to him, Greg.
Yeah, Jim Schwartzman asked, "Did you ever pull with Rusty Severe?"
Oh, let me tell you a story about Rusty.
Okay,
We were
Jason,
at-
he hasn't read the comment either, but here we go.
We
Yeah,
were
let
at,
it-
I believe it was Falls City. Jim Schaefer, the Finley twins, and there was another tractor, an 806. I can't remember his name, but anyway, we didn't have any place to unload. Everybody pulled their tractors, hauled them on a flatbed grain truck. So there was no place to unload them. And they were storming around trying to figure out how they was going to get them off, and they all had hoists. But then when they left the hoist, picked it up, why, they'd be about 2 feet to the ground, yet. And Rusty said, I think I'll just drive mine off. And Finley twins said, I bet you $100 you can't do that. And Rusty just took the bet, and he crawled up and fastened the chains, backed it up to the bulkhead, and idled it up, and got it warmed up a little bit, and throwed the throttle ahead, and just drove right off of the man. Everything bounced and shook, and then he come by the Finley twins, and he said, for $200, he said, I'll put it back on.
Oh, there's another guy checking in. You probably know it, Doug Meisinger.
Oh, Doug Meisinger, let me tell you, that tractor is a big secret, but they're finding out that people out in the West can build pulling tractors also. This guy, yeah, he won that pull last year back in that championship pull, and then he run all last summer and with the Outlaws and never got beat. But let me tell you, I think all the tough guys are going to be there that championship pull, see how tough he really is. And knowing what's going on at the Meisinger shop, I'm thinking he's going to be pretty tough. You can't be undefeated for forever, but I wish him all the luck in the world.
No, knowing Doug, it's probably still in pieces, right, Jason? He'll get it together here in a few days because that pull's coming. Is that? No, you got
the 19th and 20th.
You got two. Oh heck, there's probably more than the engine apart then.
Oh,
Probably that tractor's probably still sitting in the shed. His wife's going to tell him. She said, "Hey, you got to pull in 2 weeks. Maybe you ought to do something about it." And now, actually, I believe that he's been working on the tractor in the shop, and he'll be ready to go. Tough running Moline.
Yes.
I love that Moline tin work. I really do. And
now, Jim, you spent quite a bit of time down in that area with the Steiger company.
Yeah, I did. I had to leave Kansas because of my beliefs. I got to believe I didn't leave, somebody's going to hurt me. So, but no, I actually lived in Goodland, Kansas for
really?
a few years. And I started out in Garden City, and then I moved to Hutchinson. Then I went to Oklahoma, and then from Oklahoma to Goodland, Kansas.
Yeah.
And then when Steiger Tractor sold out, I was without a job, and they kind of took care of us guys. But anyway, I came home where my born and raised, went to high school, and helped open up a Case IH dealership here in Atkinson, and spent my last 11 years of my career in the farm equipment business right here at home, and just stayed here.
So you were down there probably when Walt Rohr was still running the old Rohr and Red.
Well, no, when I went down there, Walt had just sold that tractor.
Okay.
Walt's health started going bad on him, and he that's one of the last memories I have. I was announcing the pole at Goodland, and Walt was sitting over there in the stands on the track side, and I went over and talked to him. Boy, I could tell that he wasn't going to be with us long, and he was. Boy, that was a tough running tractor. You talk about a tractor need another 200 or 300 pounds on the front. That was one of them.
And Jason, that tractor went from their Walt Rohr there in Goodland, Doug's hometown, and then got sold into eastern Nebraska to Frank Stander, and then is now the lock and load tractor. I mean, I'm sure it's changed a little since the days, but that thing originally come from Doug's hometown.
Yeah, that's Walt Rohr and Red, he called the tractor.
Yeah,
he was an international harvester dealer.
Yes. We had a guy ask a question how long that Lyle Nelson pulled. Boy, Jim, to my memory, I think he was 82 or 83 when he made his last pass, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes, he was. I was announcing the night he did that, and
okay.
He was 82 years old, and there's not a lot of us old guys. I'm going to be 88 this summer.
Holy smokes!
And so it's like the old guy said, if you was going to live this long, you took better care of yourself. But I wouldn't change a thing in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and then boy, later on, you got around to several of our Colorado polls too. You announced there for several years as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I could go full time then, and I was enjoying it. And I had the motor home, and I had a trailer I pulled with one of my straight rods in the back. Of that time was a '56 GMC pickup, and that was my. And I'd go out there. Sometimes I'd be gone a week, 10 days, and and we'd bunk up down there. Greg and I, the guy I can't think of his last name. Greg got the twin.
Greg Urban.
Greg Urban. We just stayed together, and we'd eat a little steak and sit there and talk about tractor pulling for 2 or 3 days, always laying around. And
there's another guy that could. I'd love to see a map of every place that man pulled.
Oh yeah, Greg, actually he pulled in Alaska.
Yeah, that's it still blows my mind. Was he one of them that pulled in Hawaii as well?
Yep, I think he went. He either went to Hawaii or he went to Australia, and I think it was Hawaii.
Oh wow! Okay, that'd be a couple hard ones to check off on the list today, Jason.
Yeah, well, of course, we talked about that. Greg and I talked about that today. There's another guy that needs to be interviewed, and out of Holyoke, Colorado. And I'm sure
Gary Sporhays.
Gary Sporhays.
I had a good talk with him today, and Jim, of all things, he doesn't want to be interviewed on camera.
Really? That's because he's homely. He doesn't...
Could be. I haven't seen him in a while.
I think he's probably listening. My phone will be ringing shortly.
Yeah.
I talked to him quite a bit on the phone. That's the one thing I have been able to do is stay in contact with a lot of my old pulling buddies. I have to give a lot of that credit to Facebook. We found each other.
Yeah.
And my old Steiger guys that I worked with, and
Donnie Bennett had to be one of those, wasn't he?
yes, he was Donnie Bennett. Donnie Bennett. That's another story. You know, the CEO of Steiger Tractor drove a Mercedes car. That was part of his perks.
Yeah.
And of course, Donnie Bennett had money. I mean, he was that family. They had money, and and every year this guy, he got a new Mercedes. Bennett went up there and found out that car was for sale, and he just bought it. Just wrote a check and bought it. They didn't think that, they thought maybe they was paying him too much if he could drive. He drove it on the territory.
Yeah,
it wasn't because he wanted to, because he could.
He had some pretty darn neat pulling tractors himself, because did he not own the Pride of the Farm?
Yes, he did
for a while.
Yep. Yes, he did. Matter of fact, I think he pulled that at Indy.
Oh, really?
I believe he did. I'd have to have that confirmed, but of course Donnie's not among us anymore either. So
I know. And then later he had a 4430, I think, that burned up in the fire at Drussel's.
Yep. Yeah, there's another piece of work, that Drussel.
Yes. Jason, do you know much about the Drussel influence in pulling? It's unbelievable.
Well, I know. I mean, I just think Drussel rim. That would be the only thing I would recognize.
That was the first.
Oh,
that might have been the first aluminum rims made. It was on that Williams tractor, that 4010, out of eastern Colorado.
I think there was one set earlier made by Lauren Pyre.
Oh, Lauren Pryor, yeah.
But they're very good friends. I think they worked together on some of that stuff, and I was blown away, because I always knew about Drussel and some of the history from when he was out here, because he was somewhat local to us. But if you get to talking Brian Connors, I had a really good talk with him the other day, and Brian, his knowledge, he will attribute a lot of their success of getting kicked off to Drussel, Doug Drussel.
Doug, they had a V8 tank that they pulled in. It run well, a single engine, but their tow rig was a Ford van with a V8 Cummins in it that they pulled it out of flatbed trailer, and that thing had a John Deere power shift transmission behind that Cummins engine in that Ford van. I never did know how that worked, but Doug Drussel made it work.
I'll be darned. Well, he sounded like an interesting guy, and he was out of Garden City, Kansas.
Garden City, I think he's in Colorado Springs. No, that's the last I heard. Of course, Charlie's not among us anymore.
Right. Both him and Lauren, I think, retired over there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that's another that Lauren Pryor was another guy that built a lot of stuff.
He had a twin engine, 2 blown small blocks that run pretty hard.
Yeah. And then he built that Coors Light sled that ran out here in Colorado forever. That was his creation there too. Motorized sled back.
Oh, yeah.
That had to be in the middle 80s.
Well, that's he brought that to I think that was the first. That might have been, we had 2 sleds at Hildreth, but that was one of them.
Yep.
Yes. The other one might have been that old dragon wagon out of Colorado. I don't remember the guy's name. But
are you talking about the yellow sled, or kind of?
Yeah.
There was a guy that was involved in Brule, Nebraska with that sled.
Okay, well, you talk about sleds. The Nebraska owned a sled at one time.
Oh, really?
And then and then it was sold to a guy out southwestern Nebraska, and he took the box off and put a water tank on it.
Oh boy.
And it had baffles in it, but then he had it fixed so that I forget how he did that, but that way he just emptied the tank when he started going down the road. He didn't have to worry about scales or anything.
Yeah, that Bauer might have to do that with new sleeping quarters.
Oh boy!
Did you happen to see the reveal of the sled last night, Jim?
No, I didn't.
One of the Bauers has got a sled. He's got a Peterbilt with double sleepers on it. 320-inch wheelbase, and then he's going to have a sled behind it. It's quite an outfit.
Ain't enough money won't buy.
It helps. That Bauer has done more for sleds than anybody I've ever been around in the sled business. There's been a lot of good sleds, but this Bauer is, yeah. You think back at all the sleds that we pulled back in the day. I mean, even in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a big change and a necessary and good change.
Yes, it was. Boy, those sleds, they were dangerous. That's all you can say about them.
Well, and especially with the horsepower that was coming in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not I when I was on the board, when we went to there's getting ready to put on five engines and doing that, and I spoke up and told them I didn't think we needed to do that. I said the sleds make the show, so they can make these tractors with them. That's what they want is speed. I said all you got to do is set the box different. And I said
yes.
we stay with three motors. I said if we start putting on 4 and 5 motors and 6, I said there's going to be tractors sitting in the shed, and I said we're going to lose a lot of pullers. But of course, I was just a boy from out in the western part of the United States that nobody knew about, and you know what happened. But
hey, we got a guy that asked another question, Jim. Want to know if you remember Kennard Leg Band?
Oh yes, the Allison. Yeah,
Allison him
and Greg Urban traveled together a lot.
Yes.
And it's been several years back. I stopped at a convenience store someplace down in eastern Nebraska and run into his wife. She recognized me. And,
really?
Yeah, and then another guy that would run with that crew at that time is what the hell was his name? He was from his name's gonna, but he had a V8. He had a big block. He was from Script.
Lee Brosh.
Yeah, there was one. Oh, that brings back a Lee Brosh and his dad with the big hat on.
Yeah. Was that the guy you were thinking of, or a different guy?
No, that's a different guy. He was from West Point. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Not Marv Cotman.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh
yeah,
Lord, there'd be another book.
Yeah, he lives in North Texas, north of Dallas. He's
Jim, would you please tell the story about him picking you up at the Dallas Motor Speedway?
That was the helicopter. I was down there with my pickup, my GMC pickup. I'd qualified to go down to Dallas to the car show down there, the Good Guys, with my pickup. And so I called Marv and said I was coming and we'd try and get together. And so we were down there and we had the motorhome and we were parked on the south end of there. There's that huge parking lot where they park everybody during the races. And Marv called me and he wanted to know where I was parked. And I told him, and he said, "Is there anything over in the southwest corner of that parking lot?" And I said, "No, there's nobody within 100 yards of it." He said, "I'll be there in about a half an hour and pick you up." And he come in there. with his helicopter and picked us up and took us out for supper and brought us back. Next morning, this guy said, "I don't know who you know," but he said, "That's kind of impressive. Have somebody come in and pick you up." He said, I don't know what kind
the last time I talked to Marv, he was supplying foreign armies with refurbished Huey helicopters.
Outstanding.
I mean, there were some characters involved back then.
Russ Dostal said Alice in Wonderland was the tractor's name.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, that was leg bands.
Yeah. And Brian Fuhr says Catman. I'm not sure
he meant Catman.
No, it was Alice in Wonderland, unless he changed it. Because
that's what it was. Yeah, it said Legman's wife name was Sandra.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
I'm looking at a business card in front of me. It's Ludke's Eliminator, Jimmy Ludke. Jimmy Ludke came and saw me last year, and that was a big surprise. He called me and wanted to know how he got to my house. And his dad, Lloyd. Yeah, Lloyd was on the board with me, and Jimmy wasn't very big then, because I was on the board in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yes.
And but Jimmy is I think he's got 3 sleds. I think he only uses one, but he's pretty much stays at home. He's got a
What about Leon Atkins? You got any stories from him?
The only one I've got is I was at the.
Oh shoot! Oh, Jason, we might have lost him. Like it froze up. What's that, Jason?
I had myself muted. Sorry. I've been playing some video from Hildreth, Nebraska, up there on the top above you, Greg. I'm glad you said that because I went out to YouTube, but I don't know where Jim went. So
yeah,
his screen definitely froze. So
yeah. Jason, that Hildreth pole, I don't know. I mean, you can kind of see what was there. I mean, that thing was unstinking believable.
Oh, yeah.
And as a little kid, it was some of my favorite memories because, we got exposed to all the guys, all the heavy hitters. Got to see Gardner Stone run. And, I mean, it was just like, I don't know. It was a perfect world for me. Little town in Nebraska and all these big names come around. It was great.
Oh, no, look, and the crowd just packed on both sides.
Oh, Jason, we got a story. We stayed there one night. And, of course, if you're going to stay there, it's a camping situation. I mean, my parents used to actually pack a tent. And we'd sleep beside the trailer. And we woke up the next morning in Hildreth. And I kid you not, they were running down the street with a front end loader scooping beer cans out of the street in this little town. And they followed it up with a fire truck that was hosing off the walls from about 6 foot down.
Wow.
I mean, it was I think it could have rivaled some Bowling Green stories. I mean, I was too young. I was 10 years old,
Yep.
But
I love it.
Well, I have a feeling we're probably not going to get him back tonight, but when I talked to him, at his age, and he wanted to come on,
that was exciting.
We had to do it. The stuff and things that he had seen over the years and been a part of. And it's also interesting to me to hear him talking about the rules and limitations in 1979 and 1980. It's like same stuff we talk about today at times,
Well, I'm glad there's still people alive that can tell us those stories, in the 80s and 90s, because that's really when I started following, really caring about pulling was late 80s, early 90s. You know what I mean? It was fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Chuck Popropke said Hildreth was a whiny pull. I'm not sure what that means.
He might, yeah. Chuck, if you can expand on that, I'm curious because.
Oh, awesome. He said awesome.
Awesome. Damn spell correct. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. That and the Nebraska State Fair at the time was something else. And we had a lot of locals. That's where they would, see what they were worth up against the big boys. That was half the fun.
Yep.
So, well, boy, Jason, I don't know if you want to. We talk just a little Heartland business and call it a night.
I mean, it's live with Lussetto. We can do whatever you want to do. So,
wow, you're the ringleader, man. But,
no, I just push the buttons. I just push the buttons. So
that one thing, and this isn't really Heartland related, but it was very cool to see the reveal of the sled last night.
Yeah,
also
that show. The amount of people that watched that last night was insane.
Really, I didn't see numbers, but it was, couldn't happen to a nicer couple than what they do for the Outlaw family. The thing that I think that Kevin doesn't get enough credit for is the way he builds tracks, because there's a comfort level with people coming to the polls that know that, things are going to be handled and taken care of track wise, let alone the sled.
Yep.
So, and to see him have his own deal, and, that's going to be a good thing. And the involvement with Case IH, honestly, one benefit, and we'll put on the Homer hat here for just a second.
Absolutely.
with our Heartland deal and Outlaw, the benefits. I picked up the phone today and talked to a marketing company in Illinois that is kind of the go-between between Case IH and they work on the program. They're going to help us with some stuff, maybe some flyers and different things. That's stuff that it isn't easy to get people to do that, and to do a nice job. And that's some of the benefits that I'm looking forward to as we grow this thing together.
Yep.
And also with the live stream, I think that's the potential for us. What that proverbial next level is for us to expand on that live stream and get more eyeballs on the product.
It's really, really good. I'm excited for it. Like I said, I haven't been this pumped up in a long time about videoing and having fun and being able to show that awesome, just really take it to the next level.
Yes. I'll just keep pushing. So
all we can do.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I don't know much else, as far as the schedule and stuff. We got our first pull in Bridgeport, and then, we're going to hit that. It's going to be our first trial out of the box with the live stream and several new additions, for our Heartland Region series. We'll be looking forward to doing that. And I talked to Jason on the phone, just because we are a small group and that is who and what we are, we're going to do our best to put a professional, video on. It won't have all the bells and whistles you may have at the next level, but we're going to do our best to keep working to get a good product out there.
Well, it always comes down to having enough people, Greg, and you know that.
Yes. So. And that is a worry. Make no mistake. Because
no, it's a worry for me too.
Never have enough people, boots on the ground, day of the polls and stuff like that. But I will tell you, I got a lot of exciting. We got 2 guys and a girl and a bear that look like they're on board to do some promotional work from Wyoming.
Yes.
Where that goes, we don't know. It
sounds fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Good, bad, or whatever. It should be interesting.
It's gonna be fun.
Yes.
It's gonna be fun.
Boy, dropped a little bomb last night. ESPN2.
Yeah.
At Rock Valley.
We've been talking to them for a couple months now, and so we're going to film in Rock Valley, and then we have to have it edited. Our first draft in by Kurt. Kurt emailed Ron and I today. That Monday and Tuesday right after, we're going to put it together. I think we're talking like maybe doing a highlight video, like maybe the top 3 of each of the classes we record. I don't want to do just one class. I'm not the boss. Kurt's the boss, but I don't want to do just one class. I want to show the top 2 or top 3 of every class. So if somebody, when they watch it, they see trucks, they see tractors, they see mods, they see everything. So you can engage the diesel fan, the truck fan, the spark plug fan, and bring them all back to polling. It's pretty neat. So
yes.
ESPN's really excited. She's the gal we're talking to is from Illinois, but she obviously lives in Connecticut now. I'm trying to get her to come to the Polish Championship just to watch next weekend as well. But just having Kurt on board and his willingness to kind of do whatever it takes to pull something like this off has been really, really exciting. So to say that we're going to have outlaw pulling on ESPN too. Wow. So pretty cool.
The thing I see with the outlaw leadership right now, and that's one reason that I probably wanted to be on board, is there's driven people. There's a plan, and there is, guys are putting in the time and the effort to make this thing something special.
Yeah, I agree. What are your promoters saying about being with Heartland now? I mean, with Heartland being part of Outlaws, what are some of the things you've heard?
It's different for me out here. In my opinion, we do a lot of stuff with fairs.
Okay.
And I will tell you one of my goals, and it's been this way from day one in Heartland when we started in 2011. If you talk to any fair board person, they're so busy. At the end of the day, what they need is a block of entertainment.
Yeah.
If they can be hands off and not have a ton of requirements from them, it's a benefit to a fair. So it's a little different animal. We've had a very good relationship with promoters. We really, if you look over the years, we've had a lot of repeat customers, and that's what we're after. I will tell you a goal for me out here, and part of the reason I wanted to get hooked up with Outlaw is we have our usual suspects, and we need to bring some stuff in, and it's not all the time, but we need to make sure that we don't get stale.
Yep.
So it's important to get new pullers, and that's something that I think this is going to help us do. I know just the other day, and this is another guest that I'm going to be working on getting on here, is there is some trucks out of Levant, Kansas, a little tiny town by Colby, that are phenomenal.
Okay.
Father and daughter team. She just, I believe last year was her first year. And, they're talking about coming to Bridgeport this year, which, good 4-hour drive, which would be thrilled to see them. Because that's one place that we've needed some trucks.
That's amazing.
So
that is amazing.
This Dallas Todd's asking about you're talking about the Heartland announcer.
Who is your announcer? Oh yeah, Greg. Who is your announcer now for your polls?
Okay, Greg Ryan has done a majority of our polls out west. We will fill in with 2 to 3 different guys out east, but Greg Ryan's, as far as I know, doing good. I'll tell you, Jason, if you ever want to hear a story of the chaos we deal with behind the scenes, my announcer's wife got cancer last year in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And it was just a blow. And, he's been part of the family per se, and he had to miss a pull on about 2 days' notice. And if that doesn't make you appreciate what those guys do and what they bring to the table,
yep,
it's not something for everybody. So, but Greg has done a phenomenal job for us for a long time.
Good.
And I tell you what, we worked with that Dale Bartels that shows up here, and he was top notch.
Yep.
We'll have a rookie on the Heartland season this year. We got one guy that's going to do, I believe, Albion by the name of Ron Stone. We'll see if we can't get him up to speed.
Yeah, he's trainable. He's trainable.
Maybe. Yeah. So.
Got it. Well, okay. I'm going to get ready. I'm interviewing Clint Medding tonight at 8:30. He's got the same. Normally, I go down to Nordheim, Texas for the May Feast shootout for Clint's hometown poll, Texas Truck and Tractor Pullers. But the goal at the Pullers Championships is to get it as close to the season without getting into any, national points races. And so we moved it back a week, and Clint's still mad at me. So I told him I'd be really nice to him and give him some extra plugs.
Did it fall on his poll?
Yeah. So he's been giving me a hard time. So
we're going to keep working with Clint. I'll tell you what, that's that Texas group. That is one I would love to see. We got just a few little details that could be worked out, and that would be a phenomenal addition.
I'm hoping you're talking to him, because to me it only makes sense, because there's a lot of the outlaw pullers down there anyway, and you could do some really good co-sanction with some Heartland classes and a few outlaw classes, Greg, and put on some awesome shows. Buddy.
Well, but to be honest with you, down there it doesn't even need to be Heartland. That Texas Truck and Tractor Pullers group is a strong enough group, and they've got some very nice iron. But yeah.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Some TTPA, and then you could bring in a couple big outlaw classes. you know, like the two-wheelers and, well, the two-wheeler classes, I mean, obviously we filmed it the other night. It was amazing. I think there were 17 of them or 12.
And that's what people don't talk about is we're used to seeing the Nelsons and Zycheks and those guys come up here, but man, there's way more two-wheelers down there than just them.
A lot more.
They can put on a phenomenal show.
A lot more.
So, well, yeah, we'll keep trucking along, man. And Jason, I sure appreciate it.
I love doing this every Wednesday. We'll be here. I'm in a good mood today. The consumer price index came out and mortgage rates went down a little bit. So I'm hoping they continue that trend. Just watching inflationary numbers with my real job with mortgage. So I'm excited
for that. Use that a little bit in your world.
Well, just because, I mean, if you bought a house during the COVID or refinanced during COVID, you have a 2 or 3% interest rate. And if you're thinking of selling right now, you don't want to lose that rate, you know, and because we need to keep turning inventory. I probably have 200 pre-approved buyers, you know, looking at houses, and there's just not that many. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. Right. So, no, very good.
If anybody, if you're still watching, and I'm a mortgage lender, and we can do loans in every state but New York. That's why I have that sign right behind me. So, give me a call. I love helping everybody. So,
all right. Well, man, I appreciate it, and I enjoyed having Jim.
This has been a lot of fun. Ron's been happy with the show. Kurt Van Beek's been happy with the show. So you do a good job, and I love the guests that you bring on, and we'll keep having fun.
Him that we'll try to talk a little business with Heartland and some of that. I get stuck in the history because I just that's a thing that I love, man. I don't want to see that go away, and I want the stories told because. Well,
I didn't do a good enough job of promoting that Jim was coming on tonight, and that's my fault because as the show went on. No, people are like, oh, Jim, boom, boom, boom. More people started clicking on when they realized Jim was on. So that's good.
But it'll be there later. And I'll tell you what, at some point, I'm going to get a group of those guys on because there's a Gary Sporhays that was an absolute character. He was nationally sponsored with Jolly Rancher candy back in the 80s. I mean, it was some neat stuff, Jason. And I think it, you know, adds value to, I mean, it's where we were, you know, and it wasn't all just, you know, hillbilly stuff back in the day. There was some neat stuff.
Gotcha. I love it.
Very good.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Live with Lussetto. Dun, dun, dun.